That's the Tirconail Tribune podcast with myself, John McAteer, Declan Kerr. Welcome back from the Seychelles, Declan. I heard you were on a weekend visit there.
It was very enjoyable, John.
And Eamon McFadden is with us as well.
To get back.
You came back to the sunshine and the glorious
brought
weather.
the weather with
Yeah, forecast good too, I think.
Forecast is excellent for that bank holiday weekend. We probably need it in Fannin because Gael they're hosting the Gaeltacht Championships. Talk to us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, this is the first time for Gaelana that they host the county club Gaeltacht Championships. They were to hold them in 2020 and obviously COVID intervened there. So it's a big weekend for the club, a historic occasion for them. So a lot of work has gone into it. And the park in Port Salim will be a high vic activity on Saturday, Sunday and Monday. And then the winners there and the junior and the senior will go on then to the All-Ireland Gaeltacht finals.
Are all the matches being played at Port Salim? Somebody asked me earlier on. I don't know the answer.
I'm not clear on that myself now, I'm not sure now, but I would imagine there'll have to be other pitches as well as the main pitch in Port Salim to facilitate.
Yeah, well, they have
that.
the one at Trialock, which is in quite good shape, but I just don't know what the actual arrangements are, but it's going to be a big weekend.
Yeah,
the weather will help it an awful lot as well. It'll bring people to the venues. So we wish them well with that. But we're going to start. Actually, we have already started, but the running order has gone out of sync almost immediately. Robert Watt, the civil servant in the Department of Health, refusing to appear before an Oireachtas committee. Pierce Doherty and a colleague are now moving to compel him, and apparently that is going to go through a process that will have to go to a vote in the Dáil, which is going to present difficulties. Robert Ward seems to be about the most controversial civil servant that we have in the country at the moment, or is he just in the eye of the storm all the time?
He seems to be. I suppose obviously the most recent thing is the Tony Holohan thing. The appointment, but I suppose way back wasn't it the issue in relation when he was appointed in terms of the salary that he was getting and the increased salary, wasn't it, John?
Massive, yeah.
That, I suppose, so he has been in the...
I'd have to confess that the increase he got was a lot more than I earn in 10 years actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, these people are on huge money, they're going to attract a lot of attention. Every move they make is going to be scrutinised. But I think there's a real war on there between the top civil servants. Probably he's the most prominent one, but there's about 10 of them that are at the heads of departments, and they would see their role as beyond politics. And there is legislation in the Dáil, as I said last week, that gives them a lot of authority and a lot of power. How that information or that legislation is then interpreted is what's in conflict here. Robert Watt is going to stand his ground here.
And they're trying to compel him to do this through the vote.
Stephen Donnelly, the Health Minister, is not appearing before an Oireachtas committee until such time as a report is filed and examined. And that could be the month of June. There's two committees that Robert Watt was wanted to come before, the Finance Committee and the Health Committee. He has declined both offers, which wasn't that generous of him. But if there's questions to be asked, and those committees have a purpose, they might not have a great executive function, but they have a huge purpose. And that their committees are good at asking questions and laying bare
information.
The information.
Getting the facts,
that the facts has to go out there into the public domain, and there's a couple of different reasons for that. One of them being cost factors. Did we need to make that decision? Could it have been A, B, C, or do we need that decision at all? And secondly, who actually is running the country? Is it the top civil servants, or is it the elected representatives? At all times, I would have to argue that the public representatives are the people held accountable every 5 years by the public. These highly paid civil servants, they may be authorities, they may have all kinds of degrees in that, but they're not elected by anyone. They're chosen by interview or by whatever process, but we have to accept that they're chosen by due process. And I mean, the House was falling over itself to hand them this huge amount of money. There's a number of officials in the country highly paid, but nothing quite as high as him, apart from the chief executive of the HSE, Paul Reid. But Paul Reid doesn't attract that kind of a sharp criticism.
No.
He has a different way.
Is it because he has slightly more public persona as well? Maybe brought it to the fore with the pandemic?
Yes, very good. It goes back long before that. It goes back long before that. Paul Reid has was in industrial relations. He was in various other things. In fact, he was never seen as a proper fit where he now is.
Yeah.
But he has made a fair success of it. But he's very amenable. He's not controversial or confrontational, and he does handle his brief very, very well. And he has made no big mistakes. I don't think he has made any mistakes at all during the last couple of years in the handling of COVID.
Yeah.
But the Tony Holohan thing and Robert Watt and Trinity College and all of that kind of stuff has left people just disgusted about what is going on. You know?
Yeah.
You know,
There'll be a lot going to hinge on this kind of look into that, isn't
I
it?
mean, and the potential of that having gone on, you would have had Tony Holohan being paid the same salary in TCD, and then obviously somebody replacing him on the same salary. And
it's quite obvious that from what we know now, it couldn't add up. It's what we don't know that we must find out about, and this is why we go back to Robert Watt, and it is almost essential that he be compelled to go before not one Dáil committee but two if necessary. So the Dáil is now, I don't know when this has happened before, or if it has happened before, has the Dáil has it gone down to a vote on the floor of the Dáil to compel an official. Now you take it a stage further, the possibility that Robert Watt may well say, that's fine boys, I don't have to appear in front of you despite who compels me. We don't know what will happen in those circumstances. Is that then a question of firing? And we're also in the same man when we're talking about the investigation into the Tanish's leaking of official documents has moved on to a different stage in the past week, you know. We don't know where that's going to end up as yet, because, you know, the clock's already ticking on when Leo Varadkar will take up the mantle of Taoiseach again on the 15th of December. It's not that far away. You know, the summer break is heading up. I think they're back in the Dáil this week for the first time since Easter. Then it's going to be the summer break and you into the October budget, and all of a sudden you're just right in the eye of the storm. Is it going to be left hanging there? There's a huge amount of speculation and intense interest, because we have never been here before. He has accepted that he leaked the document, that it was in the best interest of getting a deal over the line. That is his opinion. What the legal opinion might well be, and what a court might decide if it goes there, we don't know. But it'll leave Fine Gael in a very nervy position. Now, I don't think it was discussed at the Fine Gael meeting in Locos of Cranford for the Letterkenny and Mufford districts. I think it wasn't even on the agenda. And now, whether that was a slight failure on Dorian Sheridan's part to see how they should react to it in Donegal, that's some crack that, you know, I must ask her about that. Anyway, that is that. And all the while, we're back to the Dáil this evening again. This headline in the Independent today sums it up. Greens warned plans to ban turf could collapse the coalition. Do any of you believe that?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it'll go that far, but it seems to have just taken on of a life of its own. This whole issue in relation to the turf and the rural community, and I suppose obviously the rural politicians are really ramping up the pressure on Eamon Ryan at the moment.
Are they under pressure, do you think? Is the government under pressure?
Well, the Canada has been kicked down the road to some degree now that today with an announcement that it's not going to come into effect in this year. But is that just a buying time exercise? Because
it is, yeah. It definitely is, because they've got to square a lot of circles here. Eamon Ryan is sticking very rigidly to this thing that 13 people died from respiratory infections or diseases every year. Now, nobody has asked him the basic question, how many have died from inhaling turf smoke? I bet there mightn't be one person. Did you ever hear anybody having to be treated in hospital because they were affected by turf smoke?
bad batch of turf.
Bad batch of turf. Or like back in the day, I remember the old women with the shawls, they used to get stuff called, it was turf mould, and they would roll it into a big cigarette out of a copy of the Dairy Journal of that week 60, 70 years ago. And they smoked that.
Jeez.
Done nothing on them. Well, it didn't do them any harm. Didn't affect their sex lives as far as I understand. And it probably still don't. But is burning turf adding a huge amount?
Well, I suppose it's the kind of the industrial level of cutting turf as opposed to cutting a few banks of turf. Like there's a difference from
But I mean, is industrial turf cutting board them on it? That's now stopped.
Yeah.
So what is the problem here? Where exactly are we with this?
It's kind of hard to know where we are with it, isn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of its,
I think they're having
in terms
difficulty.
of its impact, how,
But there must be some large
How
scale
big
peat
an issue is it?
manufacturers, peat processing still going on. It's not completely gone.
It's gone as far as boarding them on is concerned.
Ah.
But I mean, sort of at a private level, I mean, I see loads of turf, or I meet loads of turf being delivered around Fannet, around Donegal. We don't have turf anymore, but there are people burning turf.
Yeah, no.
Maybe not that many, but there are still family homes burn turf to the exclusion of everything else. They use solid fuel for the central heating. And
Turf and coal are a mix of the two.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
You see, this is an out for Neil Martin because he's very concentrated about the dirty coal. I don't think Eamon Ryan was thinking about dirty coal when he came up with this ban on peat products. And it now emerges that it actually is still in its draft stage. It's not formulated into a plan as yet. So, the Green Party is probably, they have backed down on that. It was probably handled very badly. The concept of it was fine, but the management of it was absolutely disastrous.
It goes back to that divide in the urban and rural Ireland. That's.
Oh yeah.
That's what once you like.
But the majority of constituencies are in the rural heartland. I mean, you have 47 TDs in Dublin, probably be 57 after the next election. You have 18 in Cork. It's still not a big number. I mean, there's 40 constituencies there. It's 12 of them in Dublin, 5 in Cork, 17. You don't have a huge amount. I mean, they're attributed with more clout than they deserve, but there's this big thinking in politics. If you can't win the majority of the seats in Dublin, you can't form a government. And Fine Gael has been good at winning seats in Dublin, so has Sinn Féin, and various other parties like People Before Profit and the Social Democrats. Seats are going to be very hard to win in Dublin, but I mean, as Miriam Lord said there yesterday in her column in the Irish Times, there's serious concerns worldwide about a potential nuclear strike from Russia, and the dollar's up to its eyeballs in turf smoke. I mean, does that not tell us where we're at?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll move on. We're going to, what else were we going to talk about? I'm not too sure because I've lost the running order. Effluent in Milford. We're back at the Tribune. The Tribune has a lot of stories this week, given that it's a very slow news week, as they say. We've been following this story for a number of weeks. Liam Blinny has been working with us on this as well. The Greyrock sewage treatment plant down near a burn that runs into Mulroy Bay was badly impacted, and the council has done a big job on clearing it. I presume it is the council, even though it's an Irish Water, it's probably a project of cooperation between them both. But they've done a very good job of the creator road into the site. It was overgrown. We didn't know where the sewage treatment, or we didn't know where the holding tank was. It was so overgrown. But they went down, they cleared up that, and they emptied it and cleared it. But there's still a couple of leaks coming out of the ground. It's hard to see that they're part of the septic tank system, but they're in the ground adjacent to it. And when you prod them with a stick, the smell is absolutely horrendous. We're covering that today again, and we hope that we'll get some more answers from the council in the next week or so.
Just more work to be done.
And there's good news on the jobs front for Ferrari, by the looks of things. They're getting a new sewage treatment plant.
That's right.
Nobody up there will be too happy about this. Eamon, you have that story?
That's out there. The controversial plant that is proposed for Tirconail has been, the planning permission has been upheld by our board Planella, so it has been given the go-ahead now. That's despite serious concerns and objections been raised, and an actual official objection raised by the Ray Action Group. The Three Towns sewage treatment plant close to the Browndown National School. When would that have been? That's been covered now for like a lot.
We covered it probably, is it 3 years ago now, coming in August?
Yeah.
It was shortly before the schools reopened.
Yeah.
And we got some information on it. We ran the story, which turned out, like most of our stories, to be absolutely on the ball.
Yeah. The location of that was.
None of the politicians knew a single thing about it until they read it in the Tribune, which begs questions about where were they all summer. This work has been going on probably for 5 or 6 years to try and find a solution.
Yeah.
There's no argument about the fact that the communities of all three towns recognise the need.
Yeah. That's never been in
for
dispute now from anybody.
major works here in Mulford, just right at the back of the county council office at the bottom of the town. It's probably a whole slabland of sewage, and the smell of it in hot weather is absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
It permeates the whole town during hot weather in the summertime. It's been like that for the last 30 years or more. That is a clapped out system for all that long. Remelton, anybody out kayaking and stuff like that there, beware, because there's sewage everywhere. Yeah. Likewise in Rathmullen and indeed in Mulroy Bay, there's floating sewage all over the place. The country's coming down there. But the urgency in getting work done is always going to be impeded. You have to see that end of it as well, that the people who made that objection were they were well researched, it was well thought out, and the suggestion that they had is that all three towns should have had their own.
Could have their own, yeah.
Could have had their own plant.
Like suggested the cost-wise it mightn't have been too dissimilar, although I don't think it's been formally costed.
It's never been costed. Now, there's one in Tirconaill, there's a fine job being done in Tirconaill. There's a brand new sewage treatment plant for the first time going in there. And that's going to be almost another year before it's finished. Somebody suggested that could cost between 2.5 to 3.5 million.
Right.
Now, if you're talking about 3 towns, could you be talking 10 million? Possibly. But we're going to move on. We'll leave that sitting aside
So
here.
I can read more about that.
Declan, what else were we going to talk
And
about?
the house on the Bray in Remelton, John. Donegal County Council has granted planning permission there for major upgrade works there, and that was after there was a number of observations in relation to it, but approval has been given. But there is speculation that it may be appealed to on Board Planala. So I suppose it's a critical time for the house in the Bray. Some work has already been done, but in terms of funding and everything else, this is a critical time now.
Yeah.
And so I suppose there are fears or concerns that if it's delayed by a possible appeal to An Bord Pleanála, what that will do in terms of progressing what is a major
the speculation in the town, as you know, Declan, Remelton is renowned for speculation.
Yeah.
It's also renowned for objections to lots of things over the years.
Yeah.
That was then. But right now, the house in the Bray is at a very critical stage, as you said. There's been huge work done at the house in the Bray. It's been re-roofed, it's been protected. The structure of the building has been preserved and protected. It's got a new roof, it has got replastered, it has got doors, windows, and the internal doors have been cleaned and rehung. But the big work now remains to be done, and it's hinging entirely on. There is funding, there's potential of very good funding that might clear the job to carry out the work that's needed. They had to get planning permission for that. They've got that from the council, but they do believe, from what they're gathering on the grapevine, that it may be the subject of an appeal. Ian McGarvey has gone on record to appeal to those who may be thinking about that, to look at this thing objectively and from on a broader picture as to the benefits that the house in the Bray can bring to the town. There are numbers of projects listed there that will become a part of it very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But it's one of the best known pieces of Georgian architecture. It is one of the better known facilities that's actually unused and derelict for many, many years. And it would be nice to see the job now completed, because if it's not, a job is half done until those additional works, like that construction of a building to the rear and a lift shaft and all that has to go into it now for health and safety reasons. I can understand that people might want to object, but as Ian McGarvey says there, it does need to be looked at very objectively.
Yeah, an overall context.
You are to mention the Northwest 10K.
Yeah, it's a landmark for them too. For 25th, it's their 25th anniversary, and it's on Bank Holiday Monday. It has raised nearly €834,000 for 36 charities over the last 24 years. So.
Oh yeah.
So listen,
Creeping up in the million,
it's the 25th anniversary, and we have 3 very good charities this year. We've already done a lot of good work in terms of fundraising initiatives. So it's all systems go now, and there'll be registrations over the weekend. There's all continuing registrations online as well. So
a lot of people will be glad to see that back, Declan.
Yeah,
we'll move on here
2
because
years
we're
now.
just about to finish. A brief word, Eamon, about the Lennon Festival.
The Lennon Festival has announced some of the big names for this year's event. It's again, like a lot of these things, just coming back to themselves. They're opening on the Thursday, 7th of July, and on the Friday night, the first big act of the weekend takes to the stage. Derek Ryan and his band will be in Gamble Square, and also over the weekend, Jimmy Buckley takes the stage on Sunday the 10th. So that is that'll mark a big weekend for a return to the festival scene once again.
So they have a main act to line up or to announce it. Who is it?
That's the.
Any ideas?
No, I don't. That's the two that they have mentioned here. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's a headline act. Do we know who that is yet? Do you know, Francis?
The other big act confirmed is Jimmy Buckley for Sunday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's.
Right, I'm going to move on very rapidly because Father Pat McHugh, PP in Termon, is welcoming people.
Yeah,
He's welcoming people to May Eve at the Donegal for the first time in 3 years. Ceremonies over at the Donegal, big place of pilgrimage. Mass begins at 7 on Saturday evening, followed by Holy Hour from 9 o'clock, and then the procession from the well, or from the church to the well, begins at 10:30. Rosary and the blessing of the water and the congregation follows at midnight, and it's a nice place to go at that particular time of the year.
Yeah.
We're also back dealing with the Cath Lab story. That has moved on probably to a much more political dimension this week, with Kieran Brogan and Joe McHugh each making important statements around. We'll leave that for you to read in this week's edition of the Tribune. We'll talk to you next week. In the meantime, have a happy bank holiday weekend.